Hello, everybody, and welcome to our 10th consecutive victory green hour as the Philadelphia Eagles dominate the Pittsburgh Steelers 27-13 to win their franchise record 10th straight game, and they are now tied with the best record in the NFC with the Detroit Lions and potentially the Minnesota Vikings tonight if they defeat the Chicago Bears. And thank you for joining us here on the Kelly Green Hour. I'm your host, LG Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, another win, another victory green hour.
I know, it felt so – we're going to dive into it, but it felt so good because they just took the critics and punched them in the face with that game. And I know, as I tweeted out after the game last night, where are the goalposts going to move? And, of course – the goalposts have moved to, let's see multiple games. What happened on the sideline with Nick Sirianni? The goalposts continue to move for the Eagles. Of course, Josh Allen has an incredible game. The Bills win. All they can do is talk positive about the Bills. But the Eagles win their 10th straight franchise tie-in, 10th straight game. And there's still something to critique about it all. But as an Eagles podcast, and we are in no way homers, but 10 straight wins is such an accomplishment. It's a franchise tie in 10 straight wins. It's a massive accomplishment.
It's a franchise record. It's a franchise record. They've never won.
It's a franchise record accomplishment. Yes. So we're going to take it. We're going to run with it. And, it was great. I mean, the only thing is Barkley's chances kind of got pushed back a bit of getting the record. But, I mean, we'll see. There's some easy competition ahead, but how much we have to play Barkley, we'll see. But I know, we're all Minnesota Vikings fans tonight, right? We have the tiebreaker.
No, we're Chicago Bear fans tonight.
That too. But we own the tiebreaker over the Vikings, or we have a better shot at it.
We don't own the tiebreaker over the Vikings or the Lions.
We have a better shot at it.
It doesn't really matter. We're going to finish as
Go Chicago Bears.
I finish as the number 2 seed, but
can't believe I'm cheering for the Bears.
No, they suck. Caleb Williams is overrated. Before we jump into the game, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. And if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts in the comments on the game, your player of the game, reactions to whatever, any questions that you have you want Connor and I to discuss, let us know, and we will. All right, so let's jump right into it. The Eagles came out passing, which kind of people thought that they would do. And look, I said it on Friday. I said if the Steelers were able to take Saquon Barkley away, I had faith that Jalen Hurts would be able to throw the football. I didn't need to see. We had Ryan Swope who was giving us putting in a bunch of comments how he wanted to see or he needed to see Hurts, complete 25 to 30 passes for 230 to 240 yards. He wanted to see it. That's what he needed to see. Well, he got that. That's exactly what Hurts did. He was 25 of 32, 290 yards, 335 yards of total offense, 2 touchdown passes and a touchdown rush. With 1 fumble and on a great play by TJ Watt. You kind of can't fault. I mean, Jalen was holding the ball, but TJ Watt made an outstanding play. He didn't throw any interceptions. So, look, I knew that Jalen had that in him the entire time. Just because he said something with his interview with Aaron Andrews after. He says, just because we don't doesn't mean we can't. And that's exactly how I feel. We know that he can do it. And again, what is the point of forcing something when you don't need to? When the running game is working as well as it's been working, why would you do something that you could potentially turn the ball over or do why would you force something that didn't need to happen? The Steelers' main objective this week was to not let Saquon Barkley beat them, and Minkah Fitzpatrick kind of helped with that when he hit Saquon a little awkwardly on a run, and Saquon, the last half, it felt like half of the second quarter, it was the Kenny Gainwell show in the backfield. But the Steelers didn't want Saquon to beat them, so they took him away, and that quote-unquote forced Jalen Hurts to throw the ball. And what did he do? He connected with Calcaterra on play one. He connected with A.J. Brown a couple times. He connected with Devontae Smith. Both Smith and Brown had over 100 yards receiving. And the Eagles were able to move the ball through there. Exactly as I had predicted. If they needed to throw it, they could do it. And that's what they did.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was a guy who came in, a couple episodes ago as well and said I would like to see them throw. Do I think they can throw? Am I confident they can throw? Yes, because if you look back to 2022, 2023, the early part of 2023, we saw Jalen Hurts can throw a football. He can do it, and in big moments, he can step up. And I know that we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl game, but I mean, everyone goes on about Lamar Jackson, yet he hasn't had that Super Bowl moment. Jalen Hurts had that Super Bowl moment. He stepped up in that Super Bowl moment and went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and almost got the Eagles to the Super Bowl, but didn't make it. So you always point to that moment because we know that moment is in him. We know that passing ability is in him, and we don't need to see it if you don't need to force it. When push comes to shove and they need to do it, yes, of course they're going to step up and they're going to do it. Does it make us feel better that they went out there and did it? Yes, I'm kind of shocked that some of the conversation wasn't about how bad the Steelers' pass defense is, because the Steelers' pass defense is really bad. And we talked about in the last episode that if there was a game to take advantage of, it was going to be this one. But it doesn't really matter. The point is, when he needs to do it, they can do it. And exactly like his statement to Aaron Andrews, and exactly, the feeling that me and you have had through this whole situation is they haven't needed to do it. Why force something you don't have to force when you know you can do it? You've seen that you can do it. Who cares if it was 2 years ago? Who cares if it was 18 months ago? Who cares if it was 12 months ago? We know Jalen Hurts can do it. And as Eagles fans, the fact that there's this continued push to say, I don't think we can do it because all we've done is run. It's because we've been so damn good at running the football. Why force the pass when the teams are giving us the win on the ground?
Exactly. So they came out and they did exactly what they needed to do. Who deserves a lot of credit? Lane Johnson was pretty much on an island against TJ Watt. And I don't know how much I believe the stats because I saw TJ Watt sack Jalen Hurts and get around Lane Johnson. But apparently Lane Johnson didn't give up any pressures or sacks, which again, I hate PFF. I don't believe PFF.
PFF gave him one. And I probably know the one because it was a pretty clear pressure that he gave up. But he gave up one pressure, but I think there was probably a couple. But I mean, but on still, an island, Lane the man Johnson did an incredible job.
Lane Johnson's a Hall of Fame right tackle. Best tackle in football right now. Even better than Penei Sewell of the Lions, who's really, really good. But like what the Eagles ask of both Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, they pretty much leave them out there on islands, and they do an outstanding job against top tier pass rushers. And being able to do that when you don't have to chip with tight ends or block with your running backs, it allows extra men out in pass.
I just want to say one thing on that chip part. Calcaterra was forced to chip multiple times, and that is where you realize how much you miss Dallas Goedert, because Calcaterra can barely even chip properly. Like, there was multiple times he chipped Watt into beating Lane Johnson. So I mean, just because you brought up chipping, Calcaterra made an effort, but yeah, it'll be nice if Goedert back.
And another guy who deserves a lot of credit, and somebody who I'm not a big fan of, and I hate seeing him on the field, Kenny Gainwell had a good game. I mean, he made a couple of plays catching the football, that one spin move, making, I think, number 26 for the Steelers, making them eat grass. He took a play, excuse me, that was I think it was a 3rd and 9, and he caught the ball. Patrick Queen was coming at him, and there was another defender, and he split them, got the first down. So Kenny Gainwell, he deserves a lot of credit. We know that this is the last year of his contract. We know Nick Sirianni loves Kenny Gainwell, but it'd be interesting to see what the Eagles decide to do with him. Obviously, we're not talking about contracts and the free agents and whatnot, with the special season potential, knock on wood, special season that the Eagles have going on right now. But again, I know I rip them all the time. I'm going to give them credit where credit's due. Kenny Gainwell had a great game.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks the reality that, the Eagles weren't honest at the time about Saquon Barkley. It was clear, the broadcast made it clear multiple times. There's clearly something wrong. This is a guy that you hand the ball off to 20. I mean, Saquon Barkley still had 19 carries last night. This is a guy you generally give 20 to 30 carries to, and he didn't touch the field in the second half. You see it a lot more in the NFL nowadays, that the dishonesty and injuries, because you think that it gives you
you don't
advantage.
have to tell anybody in the middle.
You don't have to, exactly. You don't have to tell anybody, but the dishonesty, it's still there. You just have to be honest on it on the injury report. So in game, it doesn't really matter. But you knew there was something with Saquon, and then after the game, he said there was something bothering him. He didn't really go into the details about what was bothering him, but I guess we'll see come through the week in the practices, if he misses any practices, what they note as the reason for missed practices. But yeah, Kenny Gainwell, 7 carries, 20 yards, 3 catches, 40 yards. It was pretty impressive for the 60. It was a pretty important 60 yards. It felt like every time he touched the ball, there was a couple times where you were like, typical Kenny Gainwell. But then there was a couple times, like you said, that spin move where you were like, okay, Kenny Gainwell kept some drives alive for us. So definitely some big props to Kenny Gainwell, especially in that second quarter, because he had to step up and pretty much take over that second quarter for them. And it also helped in them owning the time of possession, which I know we're going to dive into a bit later on. But not only did they own it, they absolutely dominated the time of possession. I think somebody noted, they went back and counted. It's been like, it was 2020 the last time they had a game where they had owned time of possession to this extent in a game. So it's been a number of years since they owned a game like this, especially from a time of possession perspective, without Saquon Barkley for a full quarter.
Yeah, no. Let's start with the first quarter and on the defensive side of the football. The Eagles turned the ball over twice, back-to-back plays on the Jalen fumble and the Cooper DeJean fumble on the punt return, and the defense only gave up 3 points. And they did get helped when which I was shocked on this. The Steelers got called for 2 personal foul penalties. I'm sure, usually when you have a play like that, when Darnell Washington took. If you've seen The Blind Side, took him out the stadium pretty much, Darius Slay, and there was some swinging, and they called the Steelers for 2 personal foul penalties. I don't know how that happened. Usually it's 1 on each team offsetting and redo the down. But that took the Steelers kind of, they would have had the ball inside the 5, I think, but that took them 15 yards back, and they were only able to settle for a field goal. So, the defense deserves a ton of credit, and they only held the Steelers to like 163 yards of total offense. The Eagles out yardaged the Steelers 401 to 163. It's I did not expect that in the least bit. Obviously, not having George Pickens didn't help the Steelers, but Najee Harris wasn't able, or Jalen Warren weren't able to do much on the ground against the Eagles. Pat Freiermuth had a nice touchdown catch using his strong hands, taking the ball from CJGJ. But other than that, the Eagles totally dominated the Steelers offense, and Russell Wilson didn't look like the Russell Wilson who had over 400 yards passing a couple weeks ago.
I think they didn't even go for positive yardage on a drive until the second quarter. Like they had like 4 yards total offense at the end of the first quarter. Like it was pure domination. And I know there's been some people who were, I don't know what you call it now, Xing, tweeting, posting on X, but
I still use tweet.
There were people tweeting and they were saying, here we go again, the defense carrying the offense. And that's huge. Like when you look at Buffalo, when you look at Detroit, and I know Detroit's got, like, I think I sent it in a chat today, like with David Montgomery on the IR, that's 19 total people on the IR. But like, you can't trust those defenses on the field. You can absolutely trust this Eagles defense on the football field. And if you've ever looked and said, can you trust the team to make a stop when you need a stop? 100 times I would take this Eagles defense over almost any defense in the NFL right now. This defense, if you said go out there, we need this stop, they're definitely going to make that stop. And you can tell they're very passionate about it. I know we're going to dive into the Sirianni and Jalen Carter exchange later on. You can tell they're just very, very passionate about what they do. They don't like to make mistakes. They like to be extremely effective at what they do. And they are very, very effective at what they do. So massive props to Vic Fangio, because his defense has been absolutely incredible.
They have like you said, they have the best defense. And I remember at the beginning of the year, I was calling Fangio cook. So again, credit where credit's due. He's done an outstanding job with this defense. And like, it really makes, and I know we've said this before, it really makes the Dolphins seem really, really soft. That the fact that they didn't 100%. Like to be coached. They didn't.
Well,
like
I mean,
to
the
be
fact that
hard.
they can't play in the cold continues to kind of show that they probably were soft beyond just Vic Fangio and how he decided to coach. But also on that play where you're talking about Darnell Washington, I was shocked they didn't catch Washington and Mitchell. I thought for sure when the flags were going and Mitchell came in to defend Slay, I thought it was going to be Washington, because why he took Slay way out of the, like, basically into the stands made no sense. Then Mitchell just coming in to defend Slay. They usually catch the guy who's trying to step in and defend his player. So I thought for sure it was going to be offsetting with Washington and Mitchell. So we kind of got a blessing there, and you could tell by Tomlin, if you read lips, you could tell he wanted it called the way that it's called about 99% of the time, where they're offsetting penalties.
Slay even swung on Washington, and the ref said that they didn't have footage.
The fact that they didn't give it to Slay or Mitchell was beyond me. I was like, wow, they like, even to just get control of the game in that spot, it didn't really make sense in my eyes for it to not be at least one on the Eagles. But I mean, I guess we're going to take it, because in a few games we've made note that the referees have given us a hard time. I know, like, the Ravens are one of the most penalized teams in the NFL, and they're one of their least penalized games was against us, where they held Jalen Carter on 95% of plays. But
there was also the BS penalty when Russell Wilson was it Russell Wilson? He ran and slid, and
Reed Blankenship
literally just felt like he didn't do anything. He didn't launch himself at Russell Wilson, and they threw it a personal foul penalty on him. That was a horrific penalty on Reed Blankenship. So, like, look, again, we all know that the refs suck and the refs aren't perfect, and they miss stuff, and they miss stuff this game. They miss stuff every game. But yeah, so I was shocked, like we both have said, that there wasn't multiple or there wasn't offsetting penalties on that play.
And I know that Tomlin post game was like, where you were a personal foul away from this game maybe not being the way it was. You still, even if you put points on the board there, in theory, it's 27-20. And at the end of the day, we're going to get to it, but you punted the ball in the fourth quarter and you didn't get the ball back for almost 11 minutes. The end of the day,
I'm glad you brought that up, because I am shocked that he punted there. And I mean, I know his thinking was, let's put him back, maybe get a 3-and-out, get short field. Never in a million years did he think that anybody think that the Eagles were going to hold the ball for the final 10 minutes and 29 seconds of the game. The Steelers had 2 possessions, 11 plays, and like 60 some odd yards, if that, in the second half. Like, I have never seen anything like that. And I remember last year's game against Tampa, the Eagles ran out the last, 7.5 minutes. But to run 10.5 minutes out when the Steelers have all 3 timeouts was crazy. I never seen anything like that. The Eagles did get lucky before that, though. Like when Tomlin called the punt and that penalty on Jalen Carter, it was after the punt. I thought it was going to be a personal foul, like in the process of punting, so it would have given the Steelers the first down. But since it was after the punt, it was a half a distance to the goal. He got very, very fortunate, because when they went to commercial break, I was like, oh man, the Steelers are gonna have the ball. It's gonna change the game. And then, like, looking on Twitter, it was saying, "Oh, the Eagles keep the ball." I was like, "Wait, how?" And then I guess when Dean Blandino or Tom Brady, one of them, somebody explained it was after the punt, which is still weird. Like I don't know how they were able to determine that. But yeah, he can't be doing that. Like, I get it. Jalen Carter's a great player. Great player. Sometimes he does some things that a little too far. So let's hope that he eases that in. And I know you had mentioned the whole Sirianni wanting to go talk to him. The defensive line coach, Clint Hurt, kind of, and even Big Dom getting in between them. And again, there's going to be a bunch of people or a bunch of these hotheads shows or whatever saying that there's an issue. There's no issue. Clint Hurt was pretty much saying, I already talked to him. I got it. Let him cool off. You cool off. And then you guys talk. And eventually, Jalen Carter went up to Nick Sirianni and they hugged it out. So, again, you don't want to say anything emotional. And I like it that, look, the coach is like, look, I talked to him. I reamed him out pretty much. He knows he can't do that. Take a breath. He'll take a breath. You guys can talk it out. And Jalen Carter does need to realize he has to be careful. He's the best player on the defense. They can't afford him to be suspended or something like that. So he does need to take a chill pill every once in a while.
Yeah, definitely. Quick jump into the comments. Brett Eclipse, been a bit since I've tuned in. Great win yesterday, though. Welcome back. Definitely come on down. Join us anytime. Jalen Carter is so elite. I just wish he was more mature sometimes. I mean,
this is year 2. So
he's young. What is he, like 22, 23 years old? Like, he's still young. And I get it. We all want people. I mean, I'd rather Jalen Carter in his immaturity than George Pickens in his immaturity. Because if you look at George Pickens, it's every game.
Common theme, though. They're both from Georgia.
Well,
there were a lot of Georgia. If you look at that game, though, for the Eagles, obviously, Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith, Keely Ringo, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, all the Georgia guys, Broderick Jones, Darnell Washington. I know George Pickens didn't play. Like, there's a bunch of – like, that was a lot of Georgia on the field at the link yesterday.
And you could be the immaturity by, like, making a mistake here and there every game or two, I think is fine. We've seen immaturity outside of football cost players careers. Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'd rather Jalen Carter in this moment make that bad decision, be an idiot, and move on from it, because, you know, for the next couple games, Jalen Carter is probably not going to make that mistake, probably not going to do that.
Brings up a good point on the bright side. Carter's immaturity is the only reason we were able to get him. It's true. He should have been the number 1 overall pick.
100%.
He's the best player in that draft, and because of what happened at Georgia, the street racing thing and all that, is the only reason he dropped the 9, right? We got him at 9. Yeah. And we did get fortunate. Like, there's a lot of people comparing him to Jerome Brown, and Jerome Brown would have been great. Jerome Brown was a Hall of Fame type player before his untimely passing.
And I mean, eventually at some point, Carter's going to start getting the calls. Like, he's not getting them now because he's young and it's life, you know, it's part
This is where I wish Fletcher Cox didn't retire, because I think Carter could have used another year with Fletcher Cox.
Agreed.
I'm glad he was around him last year. I think this year would have been a big year to have Carter around Cox, just because we saw Fletcher Cox grow and the type of leader that he was and how mature he became. And that's what Carter needs. He doesn't really have that. He is the guy on that defensive line. Like, he has Brandon Graham, but Brandon Graham plays – I'm talking about, like, the defensive tackle room.
Like, you can have veteran players around you, but the veteran player in the same room as you takes you to another level than just a guy beside you or around you. It helps, like, kind of Cam Jurgens with Jason Kelce. It helps to be side by side in the same room, working on things like that. I mean, Jalen Carter, definitely, like, you can take the bright side. His immaturity is the reason we got him. Eventually, give it 2 or 3 more years, and we're probably maturity isn't even a discussion point. But I know that we were lucky there. I don't know if they had an angle or an inkling on how they made that call, but they obviously didn't go upstairs. They obviously didn't go to anyone to say, was that before or after the punt? They made that.
Well, they might have, because it went to commercial. They might have.
And based on the circumstance of it all, like, when you look at just a pure replay of him smacking his helmet, there's no way in that time frame that I think a punt got off. Like, when I look at that replay, I don't think a punt got off in that time. It was within 2 or 3 seconds, but that's how quick sometimes things happen. in the NFL. And you mentioned about the time. They ran 11 plays in the second half for a grand total of 5 minutes and 50 seconds, while the Eagles had every drive of theirs had more plays and more time. 13 plays for 7 minutes, 13 plays for 6:30, and 21 plays for 10:29. They beat them in all 3 of their drives, as the Steelers had in 2 drives in the entire half. So, I mean, that was really impressive. That like a 10-minute drive to end a game. I mean, I agree. If it was a 1-score game, punting, 100% reasonable from a Mike Tomlin perspective. A 2-score game, and you haven't really been able to stop this offense all that much. The defense on the other side has been able to stop you multiple times. To think that you're going to get another opportunity, this is crazy. But to think that you're actually going to be able to get another opportunity to go against this defense and actually put points up on them in this 2-score game was the wild assumption that I was like, I don't think that that's going to happen. But I did not at that time of the punt decide in my mind that's game.
No,
like there was no way I would said that was game. So I
didn't expect Tomlin to get conservative there. And like thinking of it from like, if you think of it from an outside perspective, what were the chances of the Steelers getting 2 possessions and scoring 2 touchdowns when they had only scored 13 points up to that point? And the fact that they didn't get the ball back at all was crazy. Like a couple 3rd down conversions, a couple 4th down conversions with the tush push. It was like, and getting AJ Brown involved again. It was almost like a perfect drive. 21 plays, 88 yards, 10 minutes and 29 seconds. And the Eagles definitely could have scored again. They could have had 30 points. Like, but it was nice to see them shut up the critics. As AJ Brown said after the game, when one of the reporters asked, that dance that him and Jalen did, kind of what did it symbolize? And he said, yeah, just everybody shuts up now.
And I just can't believe like that. And I know that the media is going to do this. It is what it is. But after Jalen Hurts sat down in his presser and he said, is that what y'all wanted to see? Somebody actually asked the question. Like, I can't remember the exact question. It was basically, is that what you were looking to do tonight? And it was like, he just made that comment and you're going to be that guy to ask that question. It was beyond me. But I mean, I think we're never going to get over this aspect of the media, and that when they can't think of anything to actually ask, they ask the stupid questions. I don't think we're ever going to get over that in Philadelphia, but I wish they did.
Sirianni, I think, said it yesterday and said it today during his press conference. He's like, we don't go into a game saying we're just going to strictly run the ball or we're going to strictly throw the ball, or somebody had asked him, like, was the game plan to go in there and throw the ball because of what happened all week? And he's like, no, like, that's not our game plan. We want to know. We kind of had an idea of what the Steelers were going to do. So, we obviously devised a game plan a certain way. And like I said on Friday, if the Steelers were going to be able to take Saquon away, then Jalen's going to throw the ball. And that's exactly what he did. Like, the Steelers were not going to allow Saquon to beat them. And who knows what would happen if Saquon didn't get banged up. Maybe if he got his normal, like you said, he got 19 carries, which at the end he was limping. I was kind of worried about that. Fortunately, he said it's nothing too serious. So that's good. But maybe he could have went off for 100. He needs to average 140 yards, I think it is, over the next 3 games to break Eric Dickerson's record. And fortunately for him, it's Washington, who's not a good defense or good rushing defense, Dallas, who's not a really good rushing defense, and the Giants, who are the worst team in football. But we'll see. That Week 18 game, like, things might play out to that they got the number 2 seed secured, and why even play the starters? The backups can beat the Giants. Let's be honest. Kenny Pickett go out there and beat the Giants. The Giants are terrible. Like, they played Tim Boyle, whoever the hell that is. Like, they're Tim so Boyle, bad. Yeah. They're trying.
I pulled up the scenario with the loss. Detroit, the Eagles, a Detroit loss and a Philly win. meant the Eagles only need one Detroit loss and one more Minnesota loss. So each of them need one
That's
more
if
loss, and the Eagles get that number 1 seed. So
crazy. The Eagles could potentially be 15-2 and get the number 2 seed, because if Detroit or Minnesota wins out, they get the they have the tiebreaker over the Eagles. But like, it's crazy when you think about, like, as great of a season as the Eagles are having, they might have to play in the wild card round. And I like looking at the teams that might be in the playoffs. Like, I don't know. It's crazy. As good as Detroit is, as good as Minnesota is, I fear the Rams and the Bucks more than those two teams.
And they've been the point of a lot of conversation, like on ESPN and other shows, is like, do you want to face the Rams? Like, the Rams gave us a run at it, and I think that they could even give us more of a run when things matter the most. And like the Bucks, like, you just know. First of all, the Eagles and the Bucks playing each other, it's just synonymous with bad luck for the Eagles. So like, we don't want that anyways.
That game
but
would be in Philly this time, though, not in Tampa.
But agreed. But they're so like Baker Mayfield and Matthew Stafford, their grit, their toughness, it comes out in just their teams all together. And I mean, there's somebody, I can't remember who said it today, but somebody said the Rams are likely one more draft away. But the fact that everybody fears them so much in the wild card round and they're still a draft away speaks volumes. Like, these are two teams that just play so hard, play so well. They're coached so well that they can upset anybody anytime. I would never say like if the Rams or the Bucks ended up against the Lions or the Eagles, I would never say it is a guarantee that the Lions or the Eagles walk out with that victory. No chance would I say that.
The NFC, I think from top to bottom, in the playoff pictures, the NFC is tougher than the AFC this year. We know the Chiefs are,
as long as none of those random ones squeak in that are still like, in the hump, when they show the in the hump picture, there's some weak ones at the bottom, but if it sticks as is, or the Rams get in, because I think the Rams are out because of the Seahawks right now, but if the Rams squeeze in instead of the Seahawks, which depending on the Geno Smith injury, that could happen. Like, I would take the Seahawks. I'd rather the Seahawks over the Rams or the Bucks, but there's a chance that you get the Rams and the Bucks, depending on the Seahawks circumstance. So it'll be interesting for sure.
Red Eclipse says, now Chase Daniel is going to hop on and pretend as if he never talked.
I agree with this statement here.
That and Emmanuel Acho.
Yep, the facility might be the worst show on FS1. They got a lot of bad ones. Emmanuel Acho and James Jones go from calling Jalen Hurts the problem to then talking about how much they win the next show. I mean, it's true. It's definitely one of the worst shows.
Shady's on?
That's the show that Shady's on, which he might be the only one that's worth listening to. But and then Brett Eclipse, all tuning into Chicago, Minnesota right after this, right? Absolutely. And we are Caleb Williams fans.
I'm watching Monday Night Raw. And the Shane Shavers, thank you for joining us. Dean has played all the games, and dude is legit. He led the team in tackles yesterday. I always say, he is so good going downhill. Like, it's so tough to run on the Eagles because he is like reads blocks well and gets around. And it helps when you have Carter and Davis right in front of you, and he's used to playing with them guys, obviously from his college days. But Nakobe Dean is looking like the guy that we all thought he was going to look like his rookie year. Obviously, the first couple of years, injuries didn't help, but like, he's looking like the guy that everybody thought would be a first-round pick. And him and Bond together are really good. And like, if you're Howie Roseman, you have to think about that. Like, we see how legit these two are together. You got to find a way to bring Bond back. Like, I know he's making himself a lot of money. He's an all-pro right now in the defensive player of the year talks, but I mean, you might have to take what, like, we know how he values linebackers, which he doesn't very much do. You might have to be like, it doesn't matter. We need to bring him back because these two as a pairing are really, really good and help this defense.
I remember I saw a mock draft, which is crazy how many mock drafts are going around right now. But I saw a mock draft today that had the Eagles taking a linebacker. I was like, no chance. Zach Bond is getting re-signed.
In the first round?
Zach Bond in the first round. Yeah, Zach Bond is coming back because the benefit, like you said, that Zach Bond has been to Nakobe Dean is huge. Nakobe Dean wearing a brace yesterday. There's no chance last year that Nakobe Dean plays with that brace. Like,
Well,
I
he would have
think
played. He just wouldn't have been effective.
yeah, well, exactly. And I don't know, like, Dean missed a lot of time last year. So I don't know, like, this competitiveness that has come out because of Zach Bond, I think has helped Dean mentally be tougher when he's playing through pain, when he's playing through circumstances like that. So I think that it's been huge to have Zach Bond there. And I agree with you. Like, I bet Howie's kicking himself in the ass for not giving him 10 million when he had the chance and being like, this could be an overpay, this could be a risk, but look what the guy's doing.
Man, he's
Now the guy could
making
have to pay more.
$1 million this year. Like, he is the ultimate bargain.
He might be the cheapest defensive player of the year ever to play in the NFL.
Yeah, he's up there. Brett Eclipse says, can't wait for the media to discredit our incoming Super Bowl run because how injured the Lions are, just like they did with San Fran in 2022. You're not wrong. Deshae says, Nolan had 4 QB hits and a sack. He's evolving. He really is. Remember, I said it, like, there was a 100% chance the Eagles were going to take an edge rusher in the first round this upcoming draft. Now, they still might, because who knows if Josh Sweat's going to come back. Brandon Graham may come back for another year, but still, it'll be year 16. So they still need to bring in players. But Nolan Smith, like, he is looking like the first round draft pick that we took him at. And it just took some time. Again, it might take players a little bit longer to evolve, and it's taken Nolan a little bit long, but he's got up to 5-6 sacks on the year, 5.5, 6 sacks. He is showing that speed that he has, and his body is going to continue to fill into his body, and he's going to look like he next year could be the year that he gets double-digit sacks.
Yeah, I mean, he's up to 6 sacks. This was a game where he played 41 of 43 snaps. He's played more in previous games, but he didn't, obviously, like, the other team's offense was playing way more snaps than this. Like, 43 snaps played by an offense is so low in the NFL today. But he played like 97, 96% of snaps. Like, that's huge for Nolan Smith. And I mean, as much as you hate to see injuries, it almost seems like the Bryce Huff injury was a blessing in disguise for this guy.
Forgot he was on the team.
Exactly. And Brandon Graham too. Like, we didn't want to see those injuries. Well, Bryce Huff, we never want to see an injury, but Bryce Huff, we're kind of like, what was he doing anyways? The Brandon Graham injury, we were so worried about, we were so stressed out about it. And Nolan Smith stepped up and has stepped up in such a big way. It's huge. It's been massive for him. And yeah, he's up to 6 sacks. And you say he might get to double digit next year. I mean, there's a chance he could still get to it this year. The Washington offensive line, the Dallas defensive line, and Cooper Rush as the quarterback. And then he likely will see playing time in week 18 just for the sake of him being, younger and the opportunity to get out there. There's still a chance he gets to that 10 this year. But Nolan Smith has definitely evolved. A lot of people don't want to go so far as say it's a breakout, but I mean, from what we've seen to what he's become, it's a breakout in terms of who Nolan Smith has been and what we've been waiting for from him. And I think there's still so much, like, what happens when Bryce Huff's healthy come, the first game of the playoffs, and you have to decide, do we give Bryce Huff Nolan Smith snaps or do we not? I don't think
that's an easy answer. Vic Fangio doesn't like Bryce Huff as it is. So it's going to be, it's going to be Nolan Smith. Tech says, crap.
Will we face any defenses in the NFC that are better than Baltimore and Pittsburgh?
Tampa and the Rams. I still think, like, the Rams defense is, look, I know we ran for all those yards on them, but that's still a good defense. So, but Tampa Bay, like Brett Eclipse says, because Todd Bowles is probably in Jalen Hurts' head, and I know we have the one win against them last year, but in playoffs, the Eagles have not looked good against Tampa Bay at all. And
Tampa, Vita Vea almost single-handedly shuts teams' Russian offenses down.
And look, the Rams, I still think I think that they have a pretty good defense. So again, not as good as Tampa, not as good as Pitt or Baltimore, but still could probably be physical with the Eagles.
But at the top of the pack, like, I don't fear a Detroit Lions defense at all. Like, I feel we could go point for point, even go outpoint their offense, especially because David Montgomery's now down for the season. Like, I think you could go point for point there.
Fantasy.
I think you could go point for point against Detroit. You could go point for point against Minnesota. I still think once Minnesota hits playoff time, I think they'll show that,
Sam Darnold will show that
they're a
he's
good
Sam
team,
Darnold.
but they'll show out like, Sam Darnold and Kirk Cousins primetime form, almost type of experience. But I mean, I think the Bucks too, purely just based on the Bulls matchup. Definitely, I agree on that one too.
Also, potentially facing Washington for a third time, because Washington is still in the and Green Bay. Can't forget about Green Bay. I think Green Bay.
I think I'm more worried about Green Bay.
I forgot about them.
The question was asked.
Really good.
I was actually watching the facility because I was flipping through channels while working today, and that one of the questions was, would you put Green Bay with the elite of the NFC? 100%. With the way that Green Bay Detroit's
probably
banged
fourth
up,
right now in the NFC.
They're fourth, exactly. But and their only losses are against Minnesota, Detroit, and Philly.
Yeah,
they're against the elite. But if they got to play Detroit again or Minnesota again, is it going to be different? I think they do play Minnesota one more time, so could be a potential, game-changing situation. Brett Eclipse, our first rounder, is going to either a lane air or an edge rusher. We talked about the lane air, and I think it was you, LJ, that said you didn't think it would be this year. It's gonna be the same as similar to Jason Kelce. When Jason Kelce kind of gives the nudge, they're gonna start picking, and of course they picked Landon Dickerson, and he ended up being so good at left guard, they had to go out again and draft the heir to Jason Kelce. So tough to say. I don't know if they go lane air in the first round. I
still think edge rusher is a big possibility.
It feels especially like edge rusher, no matter how it ends.
They might get rid of Bryce Huff. Josh Sweat might not come back. Brandon Graham could retire. Like, they're going to need bodies there, and they'll probably go out and try to acquire one as well. But I could see edge rusher being one. But going back to I can't believe I forgot about Green Bay. Like, Jordan Love is really good. That offense is really good, and their defense flies around. Xavier, we saw week one. Xavier McKinney is good. Edge Cooper is good. Jair, they won yesterday, I think, without Jair Alexander. So Green Bay, Tampa, the Rams, not counting or not talking about the Vikings or the Lions. They're three teams that would really worry me.
Deshae brings up an interesting point. I'm not scared of anyone, even the Bucks. AJ didn't play the two games we played them. I mean, it's a fair point. Like, if you have AJ Brown in the lineup, you don't want to go with the ifs, ands, and the buts. But if you have AJ Brown in the lineup, can you do similar to what happened, last night, since we've gotten away from that game? But could you do similar to what you did, last night against Pittsburgh Steelers? Because Pittsburgh Steelers have a good, Russian attack, and the Bucks have a decent secondary. But I mean, more of a Midland secondary, more worrisome up front, and what they could do within Jalen Hurts' head, which is the biggest point of conversation within these comments.
Yeah, so it was a great team win yesterday. Jake Elliott made all his field goals, which was nice.
Even when they got called back. 48 yards that got called back.
Well, Eagles did get an automatic
first down. To go forward and make it a 41 instead of a 48, but
they got an automatic first down out of that. So it was nice to see, and they have a huge game this week. They have a chance to clinch the division with a win over Washington this week. Washington's going to want to come out and get revenge after the losing to the Eagles a couple weeks ago. So this matchup is huge in Landover, Maryland. I'm glad it's 1 o'clock too, because I hate 4 o'clock games and night games. I'm glad it didn't get flexed. Give me an early game. And then they finished the season off with 3 NFC East opponents. So you take care of business, and we know that week 18 Minnesota or Detroit's going to lose because they face each other. You just need one. You need whoever wins that one to lose. You need whoever wins that one to lose another game elsewhere.
Or they could each lose on the way, and then we don't have to worry at all about week 18.
I mean, hopefully, because then
Detroit's got a tough schedule. Minnesota's got a spotty schedule. Minnesota's got Green Bay again. That's going to be something that matters for both of them. Both of those teams, I think it's week 17, are going to be playing their hearts out in that game. So that matters for these teams. Like, all these games matter for the Eagles. the Vikings and the Lions, every game matters. So if they each lose one game and the Eagles can win out, then it's done.
Yeah. Let's see before we finish.
Red
off
Eclipse,
here.
I know Love can be insane when they get hot, but I've watched this Philly defense prove me wrong against other really good, insane QBs like Burrow and Lamar, who I can both definitely say are better than Love. Agreed.
Yeah. But still, like one off day though, and I mean, like we can go back to last week. If Leggett catches that ball, did we have faith that the Eagles' offense was going to go down the field to win it with under a minute to go? So any given Sunday, as they say. But yeah, so great 10-game winning streak, 12-2, one more a win this week, and they clinched the NFC East. And then we're worrying about, I think I mentioned that, so many great teams, great NFC teams this year. So you're not wrong. I mean, the NFC, I think, is more loaded than the AFC this year. The Bills are going to, I mean, it's going to probably be Bills and Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Maybe. I mean, I expect Patrick Mahomes not to miss any games, but wouldn't it be awesome to see Carson Wentz make a run in the playoffs?
Well, they've been talking about that, and they kind of said, like, you know, it makes sense for Mahomes not to play next week, and then if you win with Wentz, does it even make sense to put Mahomes out there? So it'll be interesting to see. But Mahomes is just such an aggressive player. He's such a, like, the guy was getting his ankle taped ready to go out there again last night. Like it did.
I mean, we saw it in the Super Bowl when it looked like he couldn't even walk at halftime, and he came out and ran, had a nice 15, 20-yard run. Like, give me a break. I don't believe that guy. I mean, he could tear his ACL, he'll be out there playing. Like it's ridiculous. But I mean, I am a Carson Wentz fan. So I would like to see Carson Wentz get some playing time, but we'll see.
Yeah, Tech, that's not happening. Wentz beating us in the Super Bowl would be the most revenge game ever.
I think the Eagles should have Nick Foles be honorary captain if that were to ever happen. Just to get
I don't even think a torn Achilles would keep Mahomes out of a Super Bowl. Like, I just don't think it's in Mahomes to not be in a Super Bowl with a chance to three-peat. If you think Mahomes and Reed are leaving Wentz for the three-peat, well,
you never know. I'm still a Carson Wentz fan. I like Carson Wentz.
I do. I do.
Clip says I desperately want to see Wentz play. Is that because you like him, or you want to see how bad he is? That's like that could go a number of different ways.
I'd like to see what he's still got in him. Like the only times you get to see him is he's in with like the second and the third string guys.
And he only handed the ball off yesterday, pretty much.
Well, exactly.
I mean, he went 2 for 2.
He's only been out there in a circumstance where he has to, just preserve a very large lead or a decent lead. Tech says, I like Wentz too. Red Eclipse says, I want whatever horse steroids they pump Mahomes with in that Super Bowl. Sprained ankle and he turned into prime Vic.
That was so annoying in the fourth. Was it the fourth quarter? And he made that one run. Like, give me a break. The Eagles should have won that Super Bowl. We should be 2-time Super Bowl champs right now. I'm still not over that loss.
We still might be 2-time Super Bowl champs. It might just happen this year. We'll wait and see. But
we will wait.
It was definitely nice to see the critics silence, and now they've turned to, I think you actually mentioned at one point about the Nick Sirianni and Clint Hurt thing on the sideline. And I was watching Get Up this morning, and Rex Ryan, and of course we all know Rex Ryan's a terrible head coach, but Rex Ryan said that guy wouldn't have a job the next day. There's no way you fire a guy who any of those defensive coaches who have turned this defense around in the way that they have. So that's, first of all, that's short-sighted just as you're looking at a pure leadership perspective. You never stand up against your leader. You should never have disagreements with your leader. Like that was ridiculous. So I just remember.
I mean, Clint Hurt wanted cooler heads to prevail. Like, obviously, and I think Sirianni said it in his press conference, he wanted to like get all up and like get after Jalen Carter. But I mean, I have no qualms with Hurt saying, I got it. I talked to him. I took care of it. You'll get your chance to talk to him. You need to calm down. He needs to calm down. We all know what happened. And fortunately for the Eagles, it didn't cost them the game.
Yeah, I think it was more of in the moment. Like, if we have to go back out there, Carter's going to be fired up and he might do something he regrets again. So let's just like back off. Let's
Look, he is
cooler heads
mature. I mean, he is immature, a little immature. He's
Agreed.
like he's a great player. I think Ike Reese was talking about it today. I was listening to his show, and he's like, he's a first round pick, all pro. Like he has more leash than the 53rd man on the roster. Say the 53rd man on the roster did that, he's gone. But
100%.
The talent that Jalen Carter is, he's going to be given a little bit of leeway. And obviously, Sirianni talked to him. They hugged it out. Like, obviously, everything is fine. So just let them go. But they got this figured out.
I think it's just the media loves to pick apart moments on the sidelines and moments between people like the AJ Brown and Hurts thing. I think this team is genuinely, when they continue to say over and over again, we're just passionate. We are just really, we're strong-willed people and we just get really passionate and we go at each other sometimes. I genuinely believe this is the culture of this team. They are such uber passionate players and coaches that when things get heated, they can't wait to be behind closed doors. Like some of these guys talk about, well, wait until you're behind closed doors. Like Stephen A was talking about, be behind closed doors. I don't think they can, because they're so passionate in the moment. They have to get it out there. And that's just the, kind of the culture that Nick Sirianni has. We've seen it with Nick Sirianni, that's the culture. And I don't necessarily believe it's a bad thing either. Like, I definitely think and I won't get into the political aspect of this, but like the woke society type aspect that's there, I think that there's a genuine thing there that it's like you would never talk to your superior like this, like in the Hurt versus Sirianni moment. But at the end of the day, that happens and that can be okay and can lead to positive things. And we saw that with the AJ Brown and the Jalen Hurts thing. Things boiled. They talked it out. They went into a game. They worked it out on the field and out off the field, and all came to fruition. So I don't know. I won't get too political about it, but that's my logic.
And like AJ Brown said it after the game, like they're all close. They're all like, they can have these discussions. They can have these moments and it won't affect them. And they proved it this week that like, maybe it was contrived. Maybe they just said, let's bring it up. And like, let's force this conversation. Maybe that's why Brandon Graham brought it up last week, so that this conversation would have to be forced and would have to be made, or would have to be done. And it worked, at least for a week. It worked, and we'll see what happens the rest of the way. And again, I had faith that Jalen Hurts can throw the ball. He didn't need to. What's the point of forcing it? Steelers did a good job against the running game. The Eagles averaged like 190 yards rushing a game. They rushed the ball for 119 yards. So you got to give the Steelers have the number 4 rush defense in the NFL. You have to give them a lot of credit. And the Eagles went out there and Jalen Hurts threw the ball with anticipation and was able to hit his receivers, threw for 290 yards. And I loved what he said, at the beginning of his, like you mentioned earlier, at the beginning of his press conference. That's what you guys wanted, huh? Well, he proved it. Now go out this week. And, Washington is not good against the run. Come out and run the football. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Just go out and win the game, win the division. This is hats and shirts week. Get the East taken care of, and then worry about that number 1 seed.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, we'll be back on Friday, I think, this week to get you set for the Eagles and the Commanders in Landover, Maryland, as the Eagles have 3 games left. All 3 are NFC East opponents. The Commanders on the road, and then the Cowboys and the Giants at home before the playoffs start in just under 1 month. Can't wait for playoff football. I can't believe there's only 3 games left, by the way. Football season goes by way, way too fast.
The offseason goes too slow and the season goes too fast.
Always.
We got to find a balance. Why not add a game?
They will. It's going to happen. They're going. Let's lock up.
Let's lock up that 1 seed in future weeks.
Yeah, at least get the 2 seed if we win the next 2 games. I'll be at that Cowboys game, by the way. I can't wait.
And thank you, Tech. Good show. Like and subscribe. Absolutely.
Yes.
Hit like, hit subscribe. Join us every week. We love all of y'all.
Yes, we appreciate all the comments. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHorrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. Brett Eclipse is going to be at the Washington game next week. It's a good one to go to. It'll be better than the Cowboys game that I'll be at. The only thing I like about the Cowboys game is it's Kelly Green Day, so I get to wear my Kelly Green jersey, and I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
I live in another country, and we're fighting over tariffs, but I wish I could be at any Eagles game, really.
I'm telling you, we have to get you to one sooner or later. We've been doing this show for, 5-6 years now? Yeah, we need to get you down here to a game at the Link before they get a new stadium, which I hope. By the way, if the Eagles get a new stadium, it better not be a domed stadium. I love what makes Philadelphia great, what makes the Northeast great is the weather, cold weather games. No domed stadium. I don't care what anybody says. I get it. You can host a Super Bowl if you have a dome stadium. I don't even want a retractable dome. I don't want the chances of them saying, it's too cold, let's close the roof. No.
Yeah, because the minute there's inclement weather, if there's a retractable dome, the dome is shutting.
No,
You're never going to play in inclement weather with a dome open.
I want Detroit to have to come to Philly and play in snow. I don't want it to be like, oh, it's about to snow, let's close the roof. Nah. I get it. You want to be able to host the Super Bowl. You want to be able to do a bunch of things, host a bunch of things, which you can do. You can host the Super Bowl in Philly if you have a dome, a retractable dome or a closed roof stadium, but nah. Open air stadium is where it's at. I think are the Bills? I can't remember if the Bills' new stadium is going to have a roof or a dome.
I think it's got partial coverage, but I didn't think it was full dome or full retractable.
Again, Buffalo shouldn't have it. Cleveland shouldn't have it. New England. None of these Northeast teams should have domed the stadium.
New England has hosted a boatload of. They're hosting concerts and events all the time. You don't need a dome. You just need the right season.
They do it a lot during the summer, though. Like, you want to potentially be able to do it in the wintertime. I get it. Look, the Link hosted WrestleMania this past year, and it wasn't warm. Like, the wrestlers were complaining about it being cold, but still. All right, I didn't mean to go off that tangent. Thank you all for the comments. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be back Friday to get you set for the Eagles and Commanders right here on the Kelly Green Hour.